Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 17, 2018 NFL predictions. Well, I hope everybody out there had a great holiday. I know I did. I definitely had a good week in terms of the holidays with picking. So last week I went 10-6 straight up, and now overall for the year, I'm now 147, 91, and 2 straight up, which equals about 61.8% straight up. It's a little bit down from where I would like it to be at this point. I usually try to shoot for 63, 65%, but definitely with how crazy the year's been, how much parity there's been, it's definitely been a more of a challenge, but I will take the 61.8% straight up going into the last week of the year. I'm very happy with that. And I also want to say to all the viewers out there for this year, I want to say thank you for watching the videos. I know it was definitely a hectic year. I know I missed a couple weeks due to my schoolwork, but I wanted to say thank you to everybody that watched my videos, that put comments on them, and just enjoyed my thoughts on this NFL season. I can't believe it's already gone by so fast. I remember it was just Thursday, September 6th. It was the opening game, Falcons at Eagles, and I was so excited for the year to start. And now I just can't believe at this point it's about to end the regular season part of it. And there definitely is a lot of questions for a lot of big teams in terms of coaching, in terms of playoff seeding, in terms of just how these playoffs are going to go. And that's really the most exciting part about it. But I just want to say thank you, everybody, to watch the videos. And I genuinely appreciate you watching and taking time to listen and put comments on the videos. But what a interesting Week 16 that went on with a lot of the games. I want to congratulate the Patriots for winning their 10th straight AFC East title. I believe they now are the only team in Major League Sports history besides the Braves back in the 90s to win 10 straight division titles. And now under Tom Brady, for a full season, they've now had 15 straight AFC East division titles, which I do not think in the modern era will be repeated ever again by any team. Maybe the closest one I think that you could have right now are the Chiefs and Steelers, and the Chiefs may be only in the best position as soon as Rivers retires to maybe go on a run like that with their young core. But I do want to congratulate the Patriots for winning the AFC East for the 10th straight year and getting the second seed. Even though I do have to say, for the first time in a while, I do believe the Patriots, this is the weakest they've been since 2009. Definitely in terms of road record, 3-5 on the road. Just like in 2009, they were 3-5 on the road. Tom Brady has thrown his most interceptions since 2013 with 11. And he's thrown for his fewest touchdowns in a season since 2013 as well, with 25 in that way. There definitely have been a lot of injuries with the Patriots this year, but definitely with how Brady's been playing, especially the last couple of weeks. Having at least, 3 picks, and scoring 24 and 10 points in the way they did it. I know you could say, well, they were playing the number one defense and pass defense in Buffalo, so that they went to the run game and they ran for over 270 yards. But still, just the way the Patriots have been playing on the road, the teams they've lost to on the road, they've lost to Jacksonville by a significant margin. They got soundly beaten by the Lions. They got blown out by the Titans. They lost a Miami Miracle game against Miami. You could throw that one up to just, they always lose one game in Miami every year for some odd reason. But I just don't think the Patriots are in that position. And then you look at the rest of how the AFC is shaking up. The Chiefs, they still have the number one offense in the league by terms of every metric, and especially passing. Patrick Mahomes, with his year he's completed 66.4% of his passes, 4,816 yards, 48 TDs, 11 interceptions. He'll probably break 5,000, 50 touchdowns, which I believe only Peyton and Marino are the only other two guys that have those kind of marks. So kudos to him. I do think he will win the MVP, though I will give Drew Brees a chance because Drew Brees at least has a better record. And his TD interception ratio, Brees has thrown the fewest amount of picks he's had in a season for himself, and he definitely has the completion percentage record breaking his own, I think of 74.4%. But the Chiefs thing is they've lost 3 of their last 5 games, and that defense is atrocious. It is ranked 29th in points, second worst in yards. They're the second worst pass defense and the 4th worst rushing defense. So that's the thing, the Chiefs are putting up all the points, but they're playing like a Big 12 team because they just can't stop giving up points. Especially with some of the games they've had. They've had a 40-43 loss to New England, a 54-51 loss to the Rams, a 38-31 loss to the Seahawks. They blew a 14-point lead against the Chiefs, or against the Chargers with about 4 minutes to go. And that's why the Chiefs are a bit shaky. You look at the Texans. I look at the Texans in a way that, they have a solid team, go from an 0-3 start to win 9 straight games. But then they play Philadelphia, and Nick Foles throws for a franchise record 471 yards passing, and they give up 32 points, especially with all those Pro Bowlers on defense. Deshaun Watson is the worst offensive line in football. He's been sacked and hit the most out of all quarterbacks in the league, and they really weren't able to run the ball that effectively. I know you could say, well, it's Philly's defensive line, but losing Lamar Miller was a significant portion of that. And just Houston's aura, you don't really feel that confident. Because I look at the Houston Texans in a way that, their winning streak was a lot of luck-based or a lot of fortunate circumstances. I'm being serious. It took overtime to beat the Colts and Cowboys. If Nathan Peterman wasn't the quarterback at the time for the Bills, if Allen was healthy, Josh Allen maybe could have beat them. It took a 51-yard miss by McManus to beat the Broncos. And definitely even with Washington, if Alex Smith stays healthy and they're in that situation, maybe they lose that game. Even though I know Smith threw the 107-yard pick six to Justin Reed. But I'm not really sold on the Texans. The Pats, I already just talked about them. The Chiefs, the Chargers, after all the Charger momentum they were having, getting Melvin Gordon and all those guys back, they get thoroughly thumped by the Baltimore Ravens 22-10. Lamar Jackson has his first 200-yard passing day. We hold the Chargers offense to under 200 yards total offense, 10 points. We hold them to 57 yards rushing, and really, the only touchdown they got was off a fumble on the first play of the game, just like we caused. And looking at the Chargers, even if they win the AFC West or get in the wild card spot, this is a team that just showed that they still have a little bit of that choker mentality in them, which I think is significant, just because that was a huge opportunity, especially with how the Chiefs were playing, and especially how they looked against Seattle, that the Chargers could have had the number 1 seed. But honestly, I will ask anybody, would anybody really have been concerned if the Chargers got the number 1 seed? Because out of all 6 of these teams that are in the playoff contention, the Chargers have the worst home field advantage in those 6 spots. Because they're playing at the StubHub Center in Carson, and they really don't have that much of a home field advantage. They don't. And I wouldn't be concerned about going into that stadium and trying to play the Chargers. I know they're a talented team, but, I go back to the last time the Chargers had, a top seed 06. The Patriots, when they're less talented, in Qualcomm, and they made a few mistakes and lost that game. So I could definitely see that again. Maybe not by this Patriot team, but definitely by an Indy, a Kansas City, a Baltimore. Yeah, they could go in there and win. Baltimore proved they could. So you look at that. So the AFC right now, if you really look at all 6 of those AFC teams, the AFC is incredibly wide open. And honestly, I would take the 2 wildcard teams that are positioned right now, the Ravens and the Colts, probably over just how they played recently with momentum, over maybe those other 5 teams, or over those other 4 teams that are in with the Chargers. I'm sorry, the Colts and Ravens, 2 of the more hotter teams than the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Patriots, and the Texans, just of how they've kind of played throughout the year and how they're playing right now. Because it's not really sometimes about how well you've played through the whole year. It's kind of about who's getting hot right now. And 2 of the hotter teams in the league are the Colts and the Ravens. So, those are my thoughts on some of those. And then in the NFC side, you basically know in the NFC, with everything going on, congratulate the Saints on getting home field advantage. That was an incredible game by the Saints and Steelers, back and forth. Big Ben and Antonio and Juju were throwing the football all over the field. I felt bad for Antonio because he had the 1 touchdown that was nullified out of bounds. But honestly, I wish they would have just given him that call because that was such an incredible catch with the way it was. I thought their defense made some big stops. I do question that fourth down call. The 4th and 5 with Roosevelt Nix running the football. I would have tried, to put Ben out there offensively. But the Steelers, Juju fumbled again. They gave the Saints too many opportunities, and that's what you can't do against an offense like this. But congratulations to the Saints for that. The Rams beat up on the Cardinals. It's the Cardinals. They didn't have Todd Gurley. That didn't matter. C.J. Anderson had the NFL record for the most rushing yards in his first game with a team post-Thanksgiving, so kudos to him. He actually ran for the second most rushing yards as well, behind only Todd Gurley, who ran for over 200 yards against the Broncos earlier this year. But the Rams, they handled their business against Arizona. They handled their business against Arizona. And then you had the Bears play the Niners in a low-scoring, rugged game. Nick Mullins actually hasn't done that bad of a job, in my opinion. I think Nick's done well enough to, at least for Jimmy Garoppolo's sake, if he can stay healthy or if he's hurt again, you may have to consider moving on from Garoppolo. I know they probably couldn't do it financially, but I would consider it because Nick Mullins, if you look at his year, 63% completion percentage, 1,995 yards, 10 TDs, 7 picks. He's played decently. He's actually, they said, I know before, that he's thrown for the second most yards against the Seahawks ever as a Niner quarterback. And I know it's at the Legion of Boom, but that's still pretty impressive for Nick Mullins to do that against Seattle in that way. And that game basically came down to, Nick Mullins having Marquise Goodwin have the ball go through his hands and Trevathan get the pick to end it. But that's why, the Bears are who they are. They are a, team that can rely on their defense. And they probably have the strongest defense out of all the teams in the NFC that nobody wants to play with, just how many big playmakers they have. But kudos to the Bears there. Kudos to Dallas for winning the NFC East for the second time in 3 years. They played Tampa, pretty well. Dak threw about 160 yards. Not great, but he managed the game well enough. And the Bucs just keep kicking themselves in the foot with turnovers, which I think will be the big difference for them. And then you have the Vikings. I already talked about Nick Foles and the Eagles. Kudos to them for beating the Texans. And then the Vikings, look, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings played well. They had a big Hail Mary from Cousins to Rudolph for 50 yards. They ran effectively. And after really about the first 50-60% of the game, that was all Lions control. But after that Hail Mary, the Vikings were able to just kind of take the will from the Lions and win that game decisively 27-9. So kudos to them for that. But now here we are. So that's my little quick recap of the week, and I'll probably mention some other things as I'm going through the rest of the picks. But now time for my picks and thoughts on each game. So this Sunday, it's a weird week this week how they divided it. Basically, you have half at 1, half at 4, and then the big Sunday night game, which I knew was happening, Colts-Titans win in scenario for the 6th seed, or if Houston loses, the AFC South title. But I'll tell you my picks and thoughts. All right, so this Sunday, when the 7-8 Miami Dolphins go to the 5-10 Buffalo Bills, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills to beat the Miami Dolphins. When the 6-9 Atlanta Falcons go to the 5-10 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the next game, when the 9-6 Dallas Cowboys go to the 5-10 New York Giants, I'm going to take the New York Giants to beat the Dallas Cowboys. Then the next game, when the 6-9 Carolina Panthers go to the 13-2 New Orleans Saints, I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints to beat the Carolina Panthers. Then the next game, when the 4-11 New York Jets go to the 10-5 New England Patriots, I'm going to take the New England Patriots to beat the New York Jets. Then the next game, when the 6-9 Jacksonville Jaguars, let me see here. What is Jacksonville's record? Let's see, are they 6-9 or 5-10? I think they could be. They are 5-10. I'm sorry. So yeah, so when the 5-10 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 10-5 Houston Texans, I'm going to take the Houston Texans to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's see. When the 5-10 Detroit Lions go to the 6-8-1 Green Bay Packers, I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers to beat the Detroit Lions. Then the next game, when the 8-7 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 7-8 Washington Redskins, I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Washington Redskins. Then the next game with the 11-4 Los Angeles Chargers go to the 6-9 Denver Broncos. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Chargers to beat the Denver Broncos. The next game when the 4-11 Oakland Raiders go to the 11-4 Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Oakland Raiders. The next game when the 11-4 Chicago Bears go to the 8-6-1 Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to take the Chicago Bears to beat the Minnesota Vikings. Then the next game when the 7-1 Cleveland Browns go to the 9-6 Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens to beat the Cleveland Browns. Then the next game when the 4-11 San Francisco 49ers go to the 12-3 LA Rams. I'm going to take the LA Rams to beat the San Francisco 49ers. Then the next game when the 6-9 Cincinnati Bengals go to the 8-6-1 Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Then the next game when the 3-12 Arizona Cardinals go to the 9-6 Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks to beat the Arizona Cardinals. And then finally on the Sunday night game when the 9-6 Indianapolis Colts go to the 9-6 Tennessee Titans. I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts to beat the Tennessee Titans. All right, it's time for my thoughts on each game. The Bills over the Dolphins. I'm taking Buffalo here because, when I look at this 2018 Buffalo Bills team, this team reminds me of the Jets last year. It does. It reminds me of the Jets last year that, they're going to have a losing season. They fell back from where they were when they made the playoffs after, Baltimore blew the game against Cincinnati. But being 6-10 with a roster that, has as their leading receiver Robert Foster as their main receiver, that's pretty impressive, in my opinion. Zay Jones. Zay Jones, Robert Foster have 559 and 520 receiving yards, and those are your two leading receivers. Calvin Benjamin, who was supposed to be their big asset, left and now is in Kansas City. LaShawn McCoy, who's been up and down, ran for 488 total yards. He's kind of in the twilight. And actually, their quarterback, has been their leading rusher. Had 536 yards, so, good for him. And he's ran for 6 touchdowns. But also leads the team. Actually, it's kind of amazing how Josh Allen almost has one fewer rushing touchdown compared to his passing touchdowns. He has 7 passing touchdowns and 11 interceptions. But the way you look at this Bills team, it's not a horrible year because of how limited talent that they had. I thought they were the worst team in the National Football League going into the year. But to be to be possibly 6-10, that's not horrible with how limited talent they were. They're going to have a lot of cap room. They're going to have definitely a lot of assets to try to build around. And they did end up right now as the number 2 passing defense in terms of total yards, or the number 2 defense in total yards, and they have the number 1 passing defense in the league, which for Leslie Frazier, that's a pretty respectable mark there. But the reason why I'm taking Buffalo here is Miami, after being 7-6 and having a huge opportunity to maybe fight for that last playoff spot after the Miami Miracle, laid 2 giant eggs. They laid a massive egg against the Vikings 41-17, where they really weren't even competitive for the most part. It took a Kirk Cousins pick 6 to kind of hook them back into fighting. And, I was like, but okay, I thought they were going to lose to Minnesota anyway. But to play the way they did against Jacksonville, I mean, that's sad. I look at the Dolphins, and if you look at that game, let's see here. The Dolphins, that game, they had 183 total yards of offense. They had 2 turnovers, one by Calais Campbell stripping the third-string running back, and then Tannehill's pick 6, which was the difference in the game. But that offense, it looked pretty pathetic, and they let Blake Bortles do enough offensively, or they just couldn't capitalize offensively enough to win the game. And now they're playing a Buffalo team. They've been horrible on the road all year. Their only road win has been against the Jets this year, so they've lost 6 straight road games. And Tannehill in Buffalo, he's been kind of a roller coaster, or he hasn't really been that effective on the road. If I can pull up his record here, I'll find it in a second. Let's see. Tannehill Wrong person. Tannehill on the road. There we go. Let's see. Tannehill in Buffalo has 0-1, 0-2. He got shut out there. Second year. 0-3. Let's see. 4. Well, I guess he didn't play in 26. Oh, yeah, no, he didn't. Actually, yeah, no. He didn't play 26. He has never won a game in Buffalo. There's a fun fact there. So that's another big reason. Ryan Tannehill has never won a game in Buffalo. And how they played on the road and how little they're playing for now, I will take the Bills off of that distinction. I do think, the game will be competitive. I don't think, it'll be easy. But I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball as effectively as New England was able to. And I will trust the Bills to get this victory in a place where Ryan Tannehill hasn't been able to win before. So that's why I like the Bills to beat the Miami Dolphins. The next game, the Falcons over the Buccaneers. This is one where I just feel like, again, Atlanta's more talented. Atlanta, they've had a lot of injuries this year. Their defense was decimated with guys like Robert Alford, Deion Jones. Grady Jarrett was out for a few games. They had, I think, Tack go down, some injuries. And then you had Devontae Freeman get injured. And this team was just a huge disappointment. And it's frustrating, especially for a guy like Matt Ryan, who had one of his better years as a pro. But I am going to trust the Falcons here in this game because I look at Tampa and I see a team that just genuinely, they have one of the better offenses, but one of the worst defenses. And the one thing that I will trust with Tampa is I feel like Tampa will make one or two plays that'll be mistakes that'll be the difference in the game. That's kind of what they've shown all year, that, Winston threw 2 picks against the Saints when they lost that one, the 2 turnovers against Dallas last week. They had the game with Fitzpatrick, throwing the interceptions against Chicago and the games against Cincinnati, where the Bucs have always shown that they can move the ball effectively. Like, if you look at the Bucs offense, they're the number 3 ranked offense in terms of total yards, and they have the most passing yards in the entire league. They have the number 1 passing offense in terms of yards, and the 3rd most in terms of total yards. That's insane for how effective this offense is, and you would think that with guys like Mike Williams Mike Evans, not Mike Williams, the guy from Chargers, but Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, Deshaun Jackson, who wants to leave there, from what I heard from reports. But this is a team that just genuinely has, a lot of offensive firepower, but the defense that with JPP, Gerald McCoy, Vita Vea, Vernon Hargraves, Justin Evans, this is the 2nd worst defense in terms of total points, and the 7th worst rushing defense. And with how, the Falcons, I think they can run the ball okay with Telvin Coleman. I think they can play well, and I think Matt Ryan will be able to move the ball down the field with their offense. But yeah, the reason why I'm taking Atlanta here, I just feel that Atlanta, they're a bit healthier, they have a little more talent on them, and I think, again, for Dan Quinn, he'd like to go out in a little, nice high note, winning 3 straight games after, going on a 5-game losing streak. At least that 3-game winning streak, can help boost his confidence. They're going to make some changes. I don't think Sark's going to be back there this year. Or maybe even Marquand Manuel. Marquand Manuel may not make it back. Even though I think he gets a pass because the majority of the injuries were defensively, not offensively. And I feel like Sark's kind of been the bigger problem. But I wouldn't be surprised if both those guys get fired. But I'm going to take Atlanta here. A bit healthier. a little bit more defensive playmaking, and again, I'll just trust the Falcons having the ball last, or Winston and them making one more mistake that cost the Bucks the game. So that's why I like the Falcons to beat the Buccaneers. Next game, the Giants over the Cowboys. This is one where I do not believe the Cowboys. I know Jerry Jones said this week that he wants to play, but honestly, I don't think they're going to play the entire game. I wouldn't start guys like Tyron Smith, who's been banged up. Zach Martin wouldn't get a start. And then some of the defensive guys are kind of banged. Like Tyrone Crawford probably won't play. I know he had a neck injury. Hopefully he'll be okay. But honestly, I think, again, the Cowboys, if they want to play their starters, play them for a quarter or a half and then sit them. This game really isn't that exciting, but I'm going to take the Giants here because it kind of feels like last year. Last year they were in their last game, and everybody thought, oh yeah, this is Eli Manning's final game. It's at home. It's against a division rival. Let's give him a nice, send-off. I kind of feel like, again, you're kind of in that same situation again. You may not feel that Eli will leave, but he could, and I think, they'll want to help with, Saquon Barkley, Indy's case for offensive rookie of the year. I do think it's more competitive now at this point because Saquon's had a few rough games, and, and I think for him, and actually I found something here with stats. There we go. He wants to have those kind of a nice ending to his year. And actually, he needs 2 receptions to break Reggie Bush's NFL rookie mark, and he needs 114 yards to join Eric Dickerson in edge as the only rookies of at least 2,000 scrimmage yards in NFL history. So I think, again, those are 2 significant marks. That'd be incredible for him. Kudos to him. But I think that's kind of the momentum that they will try to play with to help boost Saquon's case or to close it for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And with Eli, maybe give him one final victory against the Cowboys in a meaningless game before they maybe move on from him. I don't know if they will, but I feel like with the Giants, they'll play a more effective game. And then after a half, I don't think the Cowboys are going to care as much in a meaningless game that doesn't, mean anything. If the Cowboys play their whole way, they should win, but I don't think they will. And honestly, I just think, again, the Giants, they'll have one of their better games. It's kind of like the same situation as last year, though it doesn't hurt as much because at least with the Redskins last year, they knocked them out of the playoffs. This time, the Cowboys are locked in the 4th seed, and that's what matters. So that's why I like the New York Giants to beat the Dallas Cowboys. Next game, the Saints over the Panthers. This is a game where even if the Saints decide the rest of their guys, they're not going to, I would take the Panthers. I would take the Saints because I would actually trust Teddy Bridgewater and all the backup receivers with that offense over the Carolina Panthers right now, who are going to start Kyle Allen, their 3rd-string quarterback, and they had to sign Garrett Gilbert off their practice squad to back him up. And they really don't have anything. Really, this Panthers team is in a very bad situation because, look, you have an offense right now besides Christian McCaffrey, who I do want to congratulate, by the way, for breaking the running back record for most receptions in the season. So kudos to him. He's really had a bounce. He's really had a upward year this year. And definitely by the end of the year with Cam's injury, or you could even just maybe say in general, Christian McCaffrey was leading the offense and helped carrying Cam Newton through a couple of those end of games. But with the Panthers, you're looking at the team that, genuinely, you look offensively, they don't really have anything exciting. I've always said the last couple of years, or I've looked at the Panthers and gone, they are playing over their heads. Because honestly, they're not that talented offensively, and on defense, they have Kuechly and Thomas Davis and K'Wan Short, and they had Dontari Poe this year. They have James Bradbury. They have a couple other, okay corners, but this has always been a team I thought overplayed their heads. That's how I thought of them last year, that, they were overplaying their heads, and through at least the first 8 games this year, they were overplaying their heads and one of the better teams in the league, especially with wins, that big 17-point comeback against the Eagles. They beat the Ravens by a significant margin. They, and they were having a good year. And I thought Cam Newton was having a bounce back year, but then the injury started to happen, and ever since that Steeler game, the Panthers really weren't able to bounce back well enough from that, and they had heartbreaking losses against the Lions, Seahawks, the Browns, in these close games that just ruined their season. Cam the 4 interception game against the Bucs, who were one of the worst pass defenses or worst overall defense in the league. But yeah, I just I look at this Panthers Saints game and I thought this could have been a significant game for at least the Panthers' sake, that they could have been in the wild card. But this is just so sad that the Saints, even if they wanted the rest of their guys, you put in Teddy Bridgewater, Taysom Hill, receiver, that third or fourth string running backs, I'd probably still take the Saints to win this game over Carolina. Just because I do not have trust in Kyle Allen, who's going to be in his first start. Taylor Heineke, going into his first start, only thrown 5 passes in the league. So this is a guy that Kyle Allen, just a random, this is a Madden regular name that nobody's heard of. I don't think he's going to do that well in New Orleans, and the Saints are going to play the starter. So this may be an ultimate beatdown by the Saints. So I'm taking the Saints here, just because the Panthers are really kind of running on fumes, and they have a lot more questions on their hand in terms of their future, in terms of guys like Greg Olsen, Thomas Davis, probably leaving the team, not having a really good number 1 wide receiver, and just having Christian McCaffrey and Cam as your 2 offensive stalwarts, and that's it. Maybe going into next year, just having Kuechly and Bradbury as your defensive stalwarts, and the future of Ron Rivera, is up in the air too. I think he should be fired, but that's just me because I thought the Panthers had an expectation of at least winning a playoff game, and to fall this short, to realize that the Steelers can, whip your rear ends, and you couldn't recover from that. And have an 8-game losing streak to end the year. That's, I think, a little too much for me not to pull the trigger. I don't think he will be fired, but I didn't think he deserved. I do think I would fire him because I just don't think Ron Rivera, he can't have a losing streak like this in the games he was. And he doesn't have as much cachet as some other people that people think. So that's why I like the Saints to beat the Panthers. The next game, the Patriots over the Jets. This is one where, again, I'm going to take the Patriots because they're at home. The Jets, look, I will give the Jets credit. The last 2 weeks with Sam Darnold, he's played the 2 best games of his season. They've looked pretty well in their last 3 of the last 4 games with him. They won by 4 points. In the other 2 games, they lost by 1 score or less. They look effective. I want to congratulate Quincy Enunwa for signing a 4-year, $36 million extension. So good for him to get long-term security there. But with the Patriots, I think they'll be able to move the ball somehow against this Jets defense. The Pats have won 5 straight games against the Jets. I think they'll be able to run the ball effectively, and I just trust Brady will make enough plays to win this game, knowing what to stick. Because the Patriots, look, they've had a rough year, overall, especially on the road. But in division, in a game like this, they'll be able to find a formula to win this game decently with what they have, and pull out a victory. Do I think the Jets can make it competitive? They could. They could try. Again, they probably know Todd Bowles is on his way out. So maybe they'll play for him one last time to upset the Patriots and knock them down into the 3rd seed or maybe even the 4th seed, depending on what happens, would be insane. But I think the Patriots, with what they have offensively, with what their motivation is, and with what the Jets are really playing with, I think the Pats defense will hold up enough, and Brady and Gronk and Burkhead and Michelle and White will run enough, will pass enough to win this game, to get their 11th win and get the 2nd seed in the AFC locked up. So that's why I like the Patriots to beat the Jets. The Texans over the Jaguars. I like the Texans here because I feel like, again, they're going to get Lamar Miller back. The Jags defense, they had one of their better games, but this defense, this offense is just still too rough for me. Blake Bortles, he is going to get his final start as a Jacksonville Jaguar, Week 17, against Houston. Bill O'Brien in these situations, he is 7-2 lifetime against the Jags, and this now in his 5 years coaching will be possibly the 4th time he's been able to sweep this team, which is pretty impressive in my opinion. And the last time the Texans played the Jags, Bortles went 6 of 12, 61 yards. He had 2 lost fumbles and got benched. So, I think Blake's earned enough from the Jags from last year in his last game, I think, to play it out. I don't think Kessler will be involved, but I think, again, the Texans will be able to run the ball. They know what's at stake here. They don't want to end up being the 6th seed and having to probably go to Indy or maybe even Tennessee, because in both those spots, I think this time around they already lost in Tennessee, and they could definitely lose in Indy, especially. And I'd probably take the Colts to win anyway, just how they're playing. They know how important that AFC, that home field advantage is for that first game, and they don't want, and they'll take care of their business. I think, again, the Jags, look, it's been disappointing. The whole quarterback situation has been the main story I've kind of taken note of. And also Jalen Ramsey running his mouth and getting it shut up by, basically everybody, about his quarterback and how well they're going to do. Even though, again, he can say, look, we were the number 5 ranked defense in points, we were the number 5 ranked defense in yards. But being 5-10, and, in these games, and you had your big game against, the Steelers. Yeah, that's great and all, but you're a 5-10 football team. So Jalen, congrats for, having a, respectable defense. But it's bad when the points, when your ranking is just as equal as your win total. I would just tell you next time, don't trash talk as often, especially against teams that probably are going to have better records than you, or at least, more respectable than you are with the guy you have in Bortles and all that trash talk. So, but yeah, I'm going to take the Texans here. I think they'll handle their business. I feel, again, they're going to get Lamar Miller back, which will be significant in terms of their running game. And I just do not think the Jags offense will be able to do enough against a Texans team that's motivated and embarrassed, especially with how they gave up 32 points to Nick Foles. Blake Bortles is in Nick Foles, and the Jags offense is in the Eagles offense. And also, again, I think Deshaun Watson will make some plays with his feet, and they'll pull out the victory that way. That's why I like the Texans to beat the Jaguars. The next game, the Packers over the Lions. This is one where the Lions, another Lions-type year, a 5-10 season. Kerryon Johnson goes down. They give up another Hail Mary to Kirk Cousins. They're really not competitive. Stafford got benched for Matt Castle. And, at least for the Packers, they could end their run, on a 3-1 run to end the year. I don't think it's enough for Joe Philbin to keep his job, or I think Joe Philbin deserves to keep it. But it's the Packers at home. The Lions, I know they've said this stat before. I think they've lost like 23 of the last 24 years at Lambeau, or some long stat that the Packers in Lambeau have been able to dominate the Lions. And just of how the Packers are playing, how Rodgers is playing, he's comfortable at home. The Lions are just kind of just showing up there. I think the Packers handle their business, and a meaningless game for both teams. I think it's no surprise. I think for people, the Lions are in this situation. No offense to Stephen Coleman, shout out to him, Half Moon's picks. Sorry for another rough year. But I think the Packers, they have, some more confidence in them. They feel a little bit better. They're a little higher on themselves of how they played over the last few weeks of Philbin than the Lions have. And I will take that in a win over the Lions. So I like the Packers to beat the Lions. Next game, the Philly over Washington. Washington's on their fourth string quarterback, who hasn't played bad. I think, again, he could definitely, he's earned the right to keep a roster spot for next year as definitely the backup, or definitely compete with Colt McCoy. Or actually, probably as the backup, it'll be a cheaper backup to keep than Colt McCoy. But Washington, they don't have Jordan Reed. They really are limited offensive guys like Maurice Harris. Adrian Peterson's really been a nice surprise. The oldest guy to rush for 1,000 yards. Kudos to him. But with guys like, if you look at their receiving core, you have, Jamison Crowder, Maurice Harris, Trey Quinn, the Michael Floyd who had a big touchdown against Tennessee. These are receivers that, haven't really been that great. Their leading receiver is Jordan Reed, who's missed, 7 games started. And their second leading receiver is Josh Dotson. No receiver on this team has over 560 yards receiving. And, Paul Richardson's missed the majority of the year, and that's a problem. And just with the Eagles, they played better. They've been more consistent. And I think, again, if the Eagles, can beat the Texans, who had 10 wins, they can beat the Rams, who have 12 wins. They can beat this Washington team that's just basically a shell of themselves. And, here's the weird thing for Jay Gruden. I think Jay Gruden deserves to get fired. But it's a little bit different in this case, in my opinion, for me, where Jay Gruden, he should be let go because of what the future holds for this team. This team's not going to be in a good spot anyway. They could bring back AP, but he'll be 34, and how do you know that's going to do? Their offensive line will be back, but they don't know who their quarterback's going to be. They maybe get Haskins, but honestly, with how he'll transition with that limited receiving core, I don't know how well he's going to do. And with the Eagles and Cowboys kind of elevating with some of their talent they're going to get back defensively and offensively, I just think, again, he deserves to go, just because I don't think he deserves to go through maybe another losing season and then get fired for that. Just with how limited this team's been over the last 2 years. But this game should be interesting because Philly could be on a high. There's Nick Foles mania. Foles-Adelphia returning. Maybe it runs into a roadblock into Washington after he beats two teams nobody expected him to beat, and then the one team he is expected to beat, he loses. But we'll see. But I'm taking the Eagles here. More talent, a very lackluster receiving core in Washington. They'll shut down AP enough, and I just think Josh Johnson will be able to make enough plays, and Nick Foles can do his job decently. And great thing for Nick Foles, too. His first career start, I believe, was against the Washington Redskins. His last career start is the Philadelphia Eagle will end against the Washington Redskins at home. So that's a cool moment there. So that's why I like Philadelphia to beat Washington. Next game, the Chargers over the Broncos. I'm taking the Los Angeles Chargers here because the Denver Broncos, Philip Lindsay, who has the first 1,000-yard rushing, season by an undrafted free agent in a long, or I think the second or third 1,000-yard rushing season by an undrafted free agent in a long time. It broke his wrist, and he's going to be out, I think, for at least the rest of the year. And with how the Broncos are playing, that's basically their entire offense. I know Royce Freeman and they have Ronnie Hillman back. They have Devontae Booker. They can try to do something, but I don't think they'll be that effective. And Case Keenum, he's underplayed this year. He's played up to about $36 million. He's proven that he can start, he can make some plays and do decent, but he can't win you the big games. And this Charger team, remember, is just back in Week 11. They played them in Los Angeles. Phillip Rivers had 2 huge interceptions, and Case Keenum was able to drive down the length of the field and give McManus the 48-yard field goal to beat the Chargers 23-22. They will remember that. They do know that the AFC West is on the line, so they will play their starters, and I think they will get their redemption on Denver, just because they will focus on the passing game, and I think Keenum throws 1 or 2 more interceptions, and they end the year on a 4-game losing streak against teams that nobody expected them to lose to on a 4-game losing streak, but 3 of those losses against the Niners, the Raiders, and the Browns. And that was after they had a 3-game winning streak this year where they beat the Steelers, Chargers, and Bengals. Okay, that's the thing. You can throw away the Bengals loss, you can throw away the Bengals win, you can throw away the Chargers loss. They had 3 losses against teams that nobody expected them to lose to, and they had 2 wins against teams that nobody expected them to do either in Pittsburgh and the Chargers. But I think the Chargers handle the business here. They're basically at full strength. They're healthy, and they'll be motivated to redeem and show that they are not the team that played on Saturday night against the Ravens. And they'll take it on the Broncos. So that's all I like the Chargers to beat the Broncos. Next game, the Chiefs over the Raiders. I think, again, the Raiders' defense isn't that great. They had their big swan song moment, their last game in the Coliseum. They won 27-14. It was a great, happy moment. But the Chiefs know what they have to do. It's home field advantage. This is, one of the second worst team in football. You know, what a shame for the Raiders if, I guess, being the Oakland Raiders for their final game to go up against the Chiefs, but Mahomes will be too much, and I just don't think, again, the Raiders defense, the Raiders will be able to put up some points, and they did the last time. They put up 33 points, but just like last time, I just think, again, the Chiefs have too much firepower. They know what's at stake, and I think they'll get a decent amount of pressure on Derek Carr, and they'll get one or two stops, which will be the difference in the game for the Chiefs to allow them to win. So that's why I like the Chiefs to beat the Raiders. Next game, the Bears over the Vikings. I'm taking the Bears here because I think they're going to play. They're going to play their starters, and I think if they play at least 65-70% of that game, and even if the Rams are blowing up the Niners, I do not trust Kirk Cousins to make enough plays to win this football game. This is the game that Kirk Cousins was supposed to win. And if he can, kudos to him. And I know the Bears are on the road, and they've been a totally different team on the road than they've been at home. But I just do not trust Kirk Cousins. I do think if the Vikings lose this game, even against the Bears backups, if that's the case, I do think Mike Zimmer deserves to be on a warm seat here. I would consider firing him because the expectation for this team was to not make the playoffs at all. And they would be, I think, the NFC equivalent of the Steelers if they don't make the playoffs either, in terms of teams that were, too talented and too effective to have the difference. And the guy I would blame the most is that quarterback in Kirk Cousins, who is 5-24 against winning football teams. And, he needs this type of win. And just remember last year, or the last couple of years, where Kirk Cousins had moments to win, to get in the playoffs. 2016, he throws 2 horrible interceptions against the Giants. And even 2017, he, plays the Giants again and chokes out that game. So I'm going to take the Bears here. I think, again, they'll be able to shut down the running game, I think, effectively. And I think Trubisky can make enough plays. The key thing is, if Trubisky doesn't turn the ball over, he can make a couple throws to Robinson, Miller, Gabriel to, Burton, and they can run the ball, at a decent clip or, provide some trick plays and provide a little bit of a unique scheme to it. I do think the Bears will win this game. But it will be close because, again, the Vikings are at home. They know the pressure of this game. And, Kirk Cousins wants to change that narrative. And I think, this would be his biggest chance as a Viking to prove that. So that's why I like the Bears to beat the Vikings. Next game, the Ravens over the Browns. I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens here. I just feel like, again, this is a motivating game for the Ravens. They played Joe Flacco last time, and even that game was a 12-9 football game. Am I nervous? Absolutely, because, again, I would rather play Cincinnati than Cleveland. Because Cleveland's been one of the hotter teams in the league. They're 5-2. They are treating this game like a playoff game. They are trying to get their first winning record since 2007. And this win right here might solidify Greg Williams' job as to be the permanent head coach of the Browns moving forward in 2019. But I'm going to take the Ravens here because we remember what happened earlier in the year against Cleveland. We were at home, and we will remember what happened against the Bengals last year, like I was talking about earlier, with the Dalton to Tyler Boyd touchdown, which broke all of our hearts as Raven fans. I think we will use all of that as motivation to beat a Cleveland team who's on a roll. I think the Browns this year are the 2019 version of the Niners that were supposed to be this year. I think they're that team that people are going to rely on, knowing how much cap room they have, knowing they have Baker, knowing they have Nick Chubb, knowing they have this talented offense all around them, and a team that just needs to just develop more, grow more into another year, and then the Browns will be on a run next year with what they have. But I'm going to take the Ravens here. I think Lamar Jackson does enough running, does enough offensively to control the clock, and we get one or two turnovers from Baker, from either a fumble or a pick, that gets us this victory and gives us our first AFC North Division title since 2012. So that's why I like Baltimore to beat Cleveland. The Rams over the Niners. This is the Rams at home. They beat the crap out of the Cardinals. They could basically do the same thing to the Niners. They beat the Niners by 39 points earlier in the year. And I just think, again, even though I do want to say one quick thing to all Niners fans out there, Kyle Shanahan next year, if he doesn't go 500, deserves to get fired. And, because here's the thing. Let's look at it this way. Do you know the other two coaches in Niners history that were given fourth years after 3 straight losing seasons? It was Mike and Dick Nolan. So again, and I'm a Kyle fan, but you can't have. Does everybody know that he is 5-11 in 16 of his 31 games in one-score games, and 2 of them this year were against. He had a 29-27 loss to the Chargers and a 14-9 loss against the Bears. You're kidding, right? Like this team that's on third string, talent at quarterback, running back, receivers are basically lost everywhere. They lost Jimmy Ward at middle of the year. They have Witherspoon who broke his arm. Yeah, and all these talent lost spots. You're telling me that you're going to play that competitively? And just don't give me moral victories. Don't say, oh, look, you lost to the Niners practice squad. No, Niners fans, listen to me here. Okay? Kyle deserves to go if you can't get 500 because that's on him. You can't just keep blaming injuries, and you can't just keep... I will always say this about teams, okay? If you are an injured team, get blown out. Get blown out so we can just look at the team and not look at the coach and go, look, you know what? They're not that talented. They can't compete. Don't do that. Do that. Because we can at least say, you know what? They need their talent back to be more competitive. Don't have these 14-9, 29-27, 30-27 games against Aaron Rodgers with C.J. Beathard. Don't have these close games. Because I look at all those close games, and yeah, there were some bad moments from Mullins and all that, but that's on the coach too. I feel like for not being able to, show his team and show, with his play calling how to, close games. If you are that close, with the talent you have. You can say it's a moral victory all you want. I get tired of moral victories, through, 2 years. So, but that's a little quick on that. But I'm taking the Rams here. Rams are more talented. Rams are more consistent. And I think they'll handle their business against the Niners. Steelers over Bengals. The Steelers, they dominated the last, they've had 3 home games against the sub-500 teams. The last 2 home games, they've won by about an average of over 14, 15 points. They played really well. The Bengals are, basically on their last legs. Driscoll starting. They don't have A.J. Green. They don't have Tyler Boyd. This is a shell of itself as a team who started out, 5-2. What a shame for them to, fall this way. It is time for Marvin Lewis to go again. And at least for the Steelers, look, they'll have another winning record. And they need to beat the Bengals. Because if they lose to the Bengals, again, Mike Tomlin's seat will be on a pretty good hot seat. And here's the weird thing about it. I'm not exaggerating. With how the Steelers have played the last several weeks, I would not be surprised if the Bengals are more competitive. Because that's what the Steelers have kind of shown you all year, that they play down the competition and they'll let teams linger around in a way that shouldn't happen. So that's why I like the Steelers to beat the Bengals. The Seahawks over the Cardinals. The Seahawks are going to play their starters. I think they should. They're fighting for the 5th seed. And as a Russell Wilson fan, a big Russell Wilson fan, I'd rather play the Dallas Cowboys. I'd rather have the Seahawks play the Dallas Cowboys than the Chicago Bears on the road. So I would rather, and they're playing the worst team in football. The Cardinals, this is maybe Larry Fitzgerald's final game. People will kind of, see it as a sentimental moment. But, yeah, I'm taking the Seahawks here. I think they're locked in the number 1 pick anyway because the Raiders beat the Cardinals. So even if they win, they're 4-12, and that's the worst record in the league by most margins. And even the Niners at 4-12, yeah. The Cardinals swept the Niners. Oh, yeah, that's right. So the Cardinals swept the Niners. So that actually may not matter because that may get the Niners number 1. Actually, no, that would be interesting with the Niners because the Raiders beat the Niners, and the Cardinals lost to the Raiders. But yes, actually, I think it would be Oakland if that ended up in the case because it was a 3-way tie. Yeah, I think that's right. So the Cardinals, but they're not gonna, I think, play that well against Seattle. Seattle's been dominant at home, and Seattle knows what's happened, in 2015, 2017. the last few times they played Seattle in Seattle. It's been close games. It's been unfortunate heartbreakers, and I want to take it out on this Cardinal team. I know a lot of them are new, but I just don't see Seattle blowing this game. And I want to play, Pete Carroll will play his starters, and that should be enough to beat the Cardinals. And finally, the Colts over the Titans. This is one where I trust Andrew Luck in the Colts. Andrew Luck has never lost to the Titans. He's 9-0 against them. And I don't know about Mariota's health. The Colts defense has been the number one scoring defense since week 7, which is really impressive. And I trust the Colts here in this big game with the limited amount of offense. If Mariota can't go, I do not trust Blaine Gabbert to play his way into this. It's a different year. And again, the Titans have been shown that, they play a physical brand of football. And to argue, you could say they're overrated or underrated, but they're a good football team as well. But I'm going to trust the quarterback and Andrew Luck with this defense to finish off a 9-1 run after a 1-5 start, which is really impressive. If it wasn't for Matt Nagy and Anthony Lynn, or it wasn't for Matt Nagy, I think Frank Reich would be my second coach of the year with how he's been able to turn his team around, especially defensively. And I will tell everybody out there, look out for, if you're in Indianapolis, a new defensive coordinator that I would start, maybe after next year, maybe even this year, to start putting on coaching radars is a guy named Matt Eberflus. That is the defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts. He's been a linebacker coach for the Cowboys since 2009. He joined Frank Reich in Indy, and he has now, for the defense, he has the 13th ranked defensive points, 11th in yards, and it's really been impressive to how he's been able to really shape this defense in a respectable way. This is the 13th ranked defensive points, 11th ranked in yards, 5th ranked in passing touchdowns allowed, and the 8th ranked rushing defense, with basically Darius Leonard, Malik Hooker, and then just a lot of other, random okay names that, are either cast-offs or just journeymen, which is really impressive, in my opinion, just how they played. So that's it. So that's why I like the Colts over the Titans. So that's it. So until next week, until next Monday or next Friday, or either next Monday or next Thursday, because that's when I'll do my next video. That's it. So like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube prognosticators page. There's plenty of great people like Gio Knows, Bridgewater's Finest, Keith Bailey, Andrew Warren, the Stuart Mandel, the Waterboy Report, all those guys and gals that do picks just like I do. Please check them out. And that's it. So until the postseason, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.